Okay, 3, 2, 1. We can go live.
Namaskar and welcome to all. Thank you for joining us for the first webinar of the series as a part of Zootopia 2021, an open design competition. The Central Zoo Authority, in collaboration with the Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog, launched Zootopia 2021 in an attempt to involve the young creative minds of our nation in developing a nature interpretation center for an Indian zoo. The series of webinars with subject matter experts starting today have been planned to spread the importance of zoo design and planning in the field of architecture, planning, and design. All the initiatives we have are aimed at an overall awareness about zoos ecosystem, and everything's coming together at this juncture. Parallel to Zootopia 2021, we also have a year-long celebration commemorating 75 years of India independence in the year 2022. We're doing this with a campaign called Conservation to Coexistence, The People Connect, as a part of the Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. To start today's session, we have three speakers, Dr. Sonali Ghosh, Mr. Ronak Jogeshwar from AIM, and Dr. Charu Monga. To start the session, I would like to invite Dr. Sonali Ghosh to talk about the Central Zoo Authority. Dr. Ghosh is an officer of the Indian Forestry Service. She's currently placed as the DIG at the Central Zoo Authority in New Delhi, with over 23 years of work experience in protected areas and zoo management. Her current work enables her to closely understand animal welfare and the need to take up in situ and ex situ linkages under the one plan approach. Dr. Ghosh's special interest lies in exploring nature-culture linkages. She has been a strong pillar of support for Zootopia 2021, right from the conceptualization phase. Over to you, Dr. Ghosh.
Thank you, Dr. Gauri, and a very, very warm good evening to everybody who is watching this, and I hope they can see my screen. And while we all brave the pandemic and we all pledge to stay safe and practice COVID appropriate behavior, I want to wish a very, very good wishes to the students of architecture who are watching this today. I will share my screen, and the reason why we have all connected to the youngsters, the youth of the country, is that we firmly believe in the Atmanirbhar Bharat concept and the fact that the youth of the country can lead the nation. And this is the reason why we would want to connect to the young skilled architects, the students of architecture in India, to what is happening in zoos, in conservation education. And to begin, I would just want to give a very brief overview on what zoos are, what the Central Zoo Authority do, and how, as the youth of the country, you all can pitch in. Now, we all have, perhaps most of us, have our fond memories of going to a zoo as a child. Either it is with an adult or with a school team or ourselves, and which many of us have continued into our adult life. And the reason, the first important reason why we want to go to a zoo is because we want to see an animal. Something as exotic as a zebra or a giraffe, or for somebody like people like specialists or biologists to study the ecology and behavior of a tiger, or maybe a captive a deer species which is housed in a zoo. And this love for animals, this curiosity to understand how the natural world is not very recent. It is centuries old, and we have evidence, enough evidence from India, from the world over, that there were collections. So in the Europe, they were called as menageries. In India, we had exotic collections, we had private collections. So for example, the Mughal Emperor Babur, he was so fond of paintings of animals and birds. He was himself a great naturalist, that he even had the dodo, which is now extinct, in his collection. So this is how it has started in terms of keeping animals in captivity, wild animals in captivity. And over the years, what happened post-independence is that we thought the central government or the nation at that time thought that yes, there needs to be a supervision. There needs to be a kind of control on how zoos should function. And this included rescue centers, it included circuses, it included private collections. And that's how this evolution of an authority which can oversee how zoos function in the country was set up. And in 1992, finally, with a small amendment into the act, the current act, which is the Wildlife Protection Act, which governs everything which is wild in India, was done, and the Central Zoo Authority was constituted. So Central Zoo Authority is a small statutory, as they say, is a small body which draws its powers or its duties from the Act, and its primary role is to regulate zoos. And here I must say that over the years, over the 27 odd years of its existence, the Central Zoo Authority has been able to close down or shut down more than 600 illegal or ill-conceived zoos in the country. It has been able to rehabilitate more than 500 animals, which were rescued from circuses into lifetime care facilities, which is perhaps one of the greatest animal welfare movements in the world. So this is how the Central Zoo Authority has has originated, and now all the zoos that we have in the country, they abide by what we call as the, of course, the Wildlife Act and the recognition of zoo rules which were formulated. There are several other guidelines, manuals, and so on. So that's one aspect of the zoo. The other aspect, which we call as ex situ conservation. So one aspect where you go to a zoo to see animals, to understand them, to derive a sort of compassion, pleasure out of seeing these animals. The other aspect is where you support dwindling animal populations across the world using the concept of zoos. So most of our zoos, which are good ones, are also conservation success stories for breeding endangered species into captivity and then putting them back into the wild. And the best example for this, which we all are aware of, is the giant panda, which had its populations reduced in wild, and that's why it was brought into captivity. It was studied, its behavior, its biology, and then with systematic approaches, the numbers have increased. Back in India, we have our own success stories. For example, we have the Project Gharial, or there is the small pygmy hog animal, which is found nowhere else in the world except for a few protected areas in Assam. Now, this animal was dwindling in numbers in the wild, and there was no other way but to capture it and take up systematic breeding programs so that we could quickly augment their numbers. And their numbers have increased well. And then once they have stabilized, then they are again put back into the wild. Similarly, we all know of the Project Gharial, which started even before the Project Tiger, and has been a success story in terms of keeping the gharial species and the numbers intact in the wild and in our zoos. So with these two objectives, main objectives of the zoos and Central Zoo Authority, we have now come to a stage where we would want to move from the regulatory phase to the facilitatory phase, where we would want to encourage innovation, design, and achieve those global standards, those highest standards of animal welfare that is possible in the world. And with this, we are definitely eyeing towards these kind of platforms where we want to include the other aspects of zoo management into our policy making. We are also member of what is called WAZA, which is the World Association for Zoos and Aquariums, and is an online platform for discussions, for thinking about innovative approaches. And primarily, what we are looking at is care, which is care and conservation, awareness, recreation and research, and education. And of course, these are the mandated functions which we derive from the Wildlife Protection Act, which is to create a legal framework to regulate and facilitate zoos. We are also involved in ex situ conservation of certain targeted species. Creating awareness and outreach is a big, big objective of Caesar Day and of the zoos. There is a published paper that 80 million visitors worldwide visit in the zoos, which is huge in terms of the kind of outreach that we have from our zoos. And of course, there is other mandate of developing science-based protocols for captive management, and of course, establish in situ and ex situ linkages and facilitate advanced professional animal management through training, capacity building, and collaborations. So as we know, zoos are not just functioning as sites which harbor or which keep animals. They are now the urban green lungs for many of our cities. They are areas which can recharge your groundwater and by rainwater harvesting. These are areas which also act as carbon sinks in our cities. These are areas which provide recreational facilities. Zoos are also more and more becoming centers for keeping rescued animals and treating them before they can be released back into the wild. These are areas which can also support the spiritual aspect of compassion or karuna, as we say, and promote the Gandhian philosophy of animal conservation. So this is how our zoos currently are spread across the country. We have a fairly good number, and many of them are large zoos which have a big collection and a big area which can be seen easily over a period of not less than 2 days. And we are very proud to house over 550 species, of which 150 are endangered in our zoos. And many of them are endangered, they are threatened, and they need to be protected. For example, we give recognition to the Vulture Conservation Breeding Center in Pinjore in Haryana, if some of you have visited that place. And it has been a good success story in terms of captive breeding, conservation breeding of vultures, and then augmenting their population to such an extent that now they are ready for release back into the wild. And of course, our focus more and more has now become on conservation of endangered species, and of course, outreach and education. And if we see the recognition of Zoo Rules 2009 and several other guidelines which are easily available if the students are listening to this presentation, they can just simply Google caesarday.nic.in. And most of our documents that I'm talking of are readily available on the website. So we are looking at a three-pronged approach when we are looking at zoo design. Of course, animal welfare to me is the most important. We also have the visitor experience component, which is important when we are looking at zoo design. And of course, if you're looking at specific requirements of endangered species, then that also needs to be linked to the zoo design. And as I was mentioning, we have several publications. We have the design guidelines for zoos. We have zoo education, how it should be done. we have that document with us. We have the Zoo Education Master Plan. So many ideas and case studies and best practices are available out there for you all to reach out to come up with an innovative strategy. And I was looking at the VASA website, and very recently they have released their Zoo Education and Sustainability document. And I came across this very interesting formula. So the emotional bond that the humans can connect to the animals is a direct equivalent of humankind's connectedness and humankind's commitment. So for me, this humankind's connectedness is something which is very important when we are looking at design and zoo interpretation. And so this is the document which was very recently launched, which is the Social Change for Conservation. It's again very readily available on the VASA website. And in that document, they came up with this very nice table as to how one can increase the motivation of the general visitor towards conservation, towards compassion, by targeting the positive engagement, learning experience, and assistance to remove barriers and so on. So it does give you some ideas of how we can multiply or supplement in terms of engaging the general visitor who is completely unaware of going beyond just knowing the animal name or what it does or what it eats, and how it can contribute to conservation. So to me, and this is my last slide, I would want to say and suggest as tips to the youngsters who are watching, that when you are designing, please integrate animal welfare and care into the conservation education program. That is something which is very dear to me, and it should be included in the way we design our interpretation centers. There needs to be a culture of conservation. It needs to be dynamic, and it needs to be a continued effort. And it is well established that cognitive impact increases manyfold when you have multiple layers of interpretation. It should be accessible to all, then it must be sustainable, and at the end, training and professional development of the people who are interpreters and the people who are visiting is key to a successful program. So with this, I wish you all the best, and we wish all the best to all our zoos who are fighting a very, very brave time and doing well. So far, so good. And we are together in this to conserve the wildlife that we are currently custodians of. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ghosh. Trips to zoos are indeed associated with fond memories. And thank you for the information on how zoological institutions are run and governed today. Zoos are truly places to showcase the conservation to coexistence people connect. I would now like to invite Dr. Charu Monga, who will talk about design and innovation and how important it is to do this through presentation. Dr. Charu Monga is a faculty in the Department of Design at the Indian Institute of Technology, New Delhi. She has a PhD in design from IIT Guwahati, where she has investigated design details in vernacular heritage structures towards cultural construction. Her research interests include visual communication, animation, filmmaking, digital media, CGI, and game design. Her current research focuses on investigating a variety of virtualization techniques to promote cultural construction towards heritage, preservation, innovation, and empowering educational areas through communication. Dr. Monga has received awards and accolades not only in the field of design, but also film and digital media. She's actively involved with the issues related to design pedagogy, social innovation, cross-culture researches on communication, creativity methods, and published in reputed journals and conferences. She has been a visiting faculty of the SCE Technology Institute in Israel and awarded visiting fellow position in Israel itself. She has also served as a jury member of international conferences in Israel, Japan, and Japan. Thank you for giving us the time, Dr. Monga, and over to you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gauri. Yeah. Oh. We'll just share the presentation. Thanks, Rona. So welcome everyone. Thank you for working on such an amazing project where we are trying to see the interpretation center, design interpretation center for developing these zoos. Next slide, please. So now what we are going to do with to all these participants who are really taking part in this whole competition, I would like to share some possibilities of the design innovations which can really happen in the zoo scenarios. So let's start. Next slide, please. So interpretation centers are the upcoming zoo interpretation centers provide an opportunity to open up a whole new world of curiosity and interest and sensitize visitors regarding the value and need of the conservation of wildlife. Zoos are visited by large number of people, as you know, and they are potential sites for educating people and above wildlife and biodiversity conservation. The interpretation center can provide visit orientation to the visitors as well as a function of an educational center of the zoo. So providing interpretative facilities for visitors coming to zoos like on-site information through signages, wayfinding exhibits, facilities, signs, zoo map became very important aspect when we actually start planning for developing of a zoo interpretation center. Developing publications and relevant zoo literature is also a very important aspect, which you can actually look upon and do a really good primary and secondary research before moving to your design part. Guides, manuals, handbooks, these are very important aspects which you can really look upon, and the research papers you can go through. These could serve as a good learning material for students, teachers, and kids who visit these centers, who will visit these centers in the future. Also provide interesting information for the other visitors. Organizing training programs which aim to develop skills is also one of the important aspects which one looks into. Now we are going to show, I want to show you a small video clip, and I would like you to really experience the 360-degree immersion of it with sound. Play, please. You can roll down, scroll down, scroll 360. So really observe what nature is and for what kind of nature we are trying to design this new zoo interpretation center. So observation is the very important key which you can take off from this video. Thank you so much. Next slide, please. We can stop it here. So it's very important here to really, understand the, I think my voice is bouncing back. It's really important to it's really important to hear the sound and the narration which our environment really provides us. And uh, whenever we start designing the narrative approach, the first thing is the narrative approach, which is very important when we start designing any kind of zoo interpretation center. And so let's think about it. How is it possible to give the zoo visitors new experience? By using media techniques or technologies in order to create an enhancing experience. It is important to let the visitors feel that they are part of the experience and able to influence the experience. They means that interaction, communication, contribution, and visualization will become natural part of the experience. How is it possible to the visitors feel involved in the experience? By using media techniques, or you can ask yourself while designing your possibilities of the interpretation center, that how it is possible to adapt the experiences of visitors by using these media techniques, or how is it possible to integrate the experience of both the digital and the physical world together and represent it for the people around you who are going to visit these spaces. So storytelling, whenever a viewer or user is actually entering into a space, it has to be a story. It has to be a space story which you would like to tell the viewer so that they can navigate through that particular area. If there are two gates entries, if there's a one gate entry, so you need to really decide from which direction a person is going to enter, from which side a person is going to enter, from one corner or another corner. They should not misplace the lot of information which has been provided to you there. Lighting is another important factor, which is also you can actually incorporate it in your designs. Look and feel, that also comes with the lighting. Focusing on story, you are trying to communicate with your audience. That's important because sometimes we add a lot of installations, lot of information, lot of data, visual data on the in the entry and in the center of the spaces. So space design is very important, and the storytelling has to come inside it. Sound of water and natural surroundings, as you have just seen the video 2 minutes back. Uh, so sound is very important. In a research paper, it has been said that 70% of sound really impacts the human body or human life. When we hear something beautiful, we experience automatically, our senses start becoming active. So play on those senses, play on those five senses: smell, sound, look. So play on those senses, natural to develop the natural surroundings within the interpretation center. Mimicking soundscapes. Think about it. Can we mimic soundscape if we are trying to really show the underwater spaces, or show maybe in a zoo space how a tigress lives, or how a particular an animal or particular bird, they would like to, they are taking care of their own family. So there's a stories are all around the zoo itself. That we have stories in our life, the zoo also have the stories in their own life. So we need to translate those stories for the audience in this interpretation center. Small spaces designed to encourage experience views. Never try to put lot of data, means lot of exhibits at one place. Always try to put the clusters so that people can go experience it and then come to another cluster. Choices of colors are very important. Next slide, please. So this is a very interesting example. You can also go and see it online. This is the Singapore airport. And when I went there, it looks like, complete forest inside. So there's a light. It doesn't look like an airport. It looks like a complete forest. So why I'm showing you this example, that how beautifully small spaces, not like the whole trail of the whole space, but small spaces has been designed by really giving a good thought. What kind of waterfall is going to be there? What kind of rock construction is going to be there? What kind of plantations? What kind of sound? What kind of sculptures we are going to put where, from where the lighting will come. Everything has been really given a very important thought process. That's why it's one of the best airports which has been given. And I found this example relevant to Zoo Interpretation Center. So that's why I'm sharing it with you. So use of natural light is very much important. So can we do that in our new designs? Or design of overall corners, like if we are designing a corner, can there be a small sitting corner also there? Can people just have to stand and going to watch all the exhibits, all the experience which they are going to have, or they can also sit for some time, experience it, and take the knowledge, and then so we also have to think like can they can also sit and really understand the whole gamut of experience which they can actually have in the main zoos before getting there, or at least get a bit of glimpse of it. Use of natural sound, which is very important. Garden spaces they were having, as you can see, small spaces where they have like a sitting space and walking space. People can experience it. Play spaces and playscapes within the rooms. Can we do that? So these are some of the examples. Next slide, please. So another important aspect is navigation and maps. In the beginning, I shared with you that it's very important to really plan how my viewers are going to navigate within the space. Are they going to really yeah, so navigation and maps. So as I mentioned in the before slide that when a viewer is going to enter, are they going to really see the exhibits on the left side and right side both? No. So you have to really give guiding navigation lines to the viewers to really see the wayfinding systems. You have to plan a wayfinding systems, how they are going to commute or communicate with each and every work and information. They should be easily identifiable, symbolic location, easily adaptable. Mapping should be there. Placement of installation and information at different gaps has to be there. It should not be like one after another, one after another. Types of information which you are giving, that's also should be planned. Keeping gaps between various works is important, and entry and exit planning is very important. And that should also reflect in the wayfinding system as well as on the maps which you are planning, which you will design. Next slide, please. Now looking for spaces, of course, from the architecture point of view, the plane, the viewpoints which you got, you have to really plan it out. How, from where, what thing will come outside, how it's going to be there inside. Can we use the ceiling also? Can we use the ground level also? So everything you have to plan according to the spaces. Next slide, please. Now, placement of information is also important, visual, audio, sometimes combining both the things. For example, in one of the first example where you can make it much more interactive, how the tongue really feels like. So a kid is actually rubbing the scale and seeing how the tiger tongue is actually feels like. So it gives a bit of more information. And in third example, micro interactions, like how with the technology, incorporation of technology, how we can bring more micro information which is not visible from the normal eyes. So can we incorporate those kind of installations? So it's all about ideas which you will bring it on table. Next slide, please. Again, use of technological advancements, telling people through games, through interactive spaces, tangibles, illustrative stories, how, for example, in first example, like how big is a bird? So can I measure myself and see how I am as compared to that bird? So gamify the installations, gamify the games there so that people can really remember, enjoy it, and really incorporate it in their work. So you can also look at those possibilities. Next slide, please. interactive ideas. You can also look for interactive spaces like virtual realities through virtual classes. Can you experience something? At least a bit of story. Augmented spaces. On the right side example, you can see a big book which has been projected, and a kid is actually making his own story with the animals and with his other friends. So can we do some kind of more augmented and virtual reality spaces and design them in our own ways? So or maybe how our elephant or any other animal, how huge it is before a child goes and really, or a visitor goes and see the spaces, and you can give instructions here. So we look forward how creatively you can design these things. Next slide, please. Signage is again is a very important aspect, because with that you get all the information, because when a viewer comes into the zoo interpretation center, he or she doesn't know anything. So signage design should be given much more emphasis. Positioning, legibility, whether it's readable from far or closer, that needs to be seen. Dynamic, it has to be well thought color palette. It should not be random colors. The colors has to be synchronized. Directional accessibility. It should really, signage can also work as a two-way communication kind of symbol, where it's not just sharing the information, but it's also giving you the direction. Shape, sizes, interactive. It can be interactive, using height as a clue that also you can use. So signage is also one of the aspects which you can creatively design. Next, please. Design principles. Repetition is a very interesting principle, because whenever you're designing a space, sometimes as a designer, what we do, we like something and we just design one corner in that particular pattern, or using certain kind of lines or textures, but we don't repeat it. So what happens with that when we don't do this? It becomes very monotonous or ununderstandable for like viewers, and they feel confused more about like where I am I at one space or another space? So it's really important to repeat those patterns everywhere, so the space looks aligned, the space looks alike itself. Harmony of forms, point of emphasis, all these things are very important in when we are use design principles. Next slide, please. Another interesting thing is interpretation tools. Many people understand various languages, Hindi, English, Marathi, Kannada, so it's very important to really have design these interpretation centers, new upcoming ones, for everyone. It should be catered to everyone, whoever wants to be the part of it and whoever wants to understand it. So keep it in mind how beautifully you can translate data into different languages. Can we use some tech here? Or can we use some other language conversion apps or any other thing? So you can also look into it. Next, please. Exhibits in 2D and 3D is important once you're designing how you are going to display it. Is there going to be a mascot which you are planning to design? If yes, how it's going to be? So where is going to be the placement of it? Is it going to be the repeated placement, or it's going to be the front one? Is it going to be in the 3D or 2D? So, and also look at what kind of display type would you like to use? So that's also important. So that's another example. Next, please. Universal accessibility, very important factor, because it has to be useful for everyone, for visually impaired, for people who really can look at the possibilities and understand and take the possibilities of loving these interpretation centers. So tangibility is very important. So you figure it out, like how we can make a design much more universally acceptable, universally adaptable for each and every one of us in the world. Yeah. Next slide, please. Yes, so these are some of the important factors I would like to suggest to our participants who are really taking part in this competition. And I wish you all the best, and we look forward to really see the amazing ideas and works you come up with. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Munga. What a wonderful presentation it was. Thank you for taking us on this journey in a whole new dimension and elucidating so succinctly the philosophy of space design and the use of different elements in this. Thank you very, very much. I would now like to invite our third speaker for the evening, Mr. Ronak Jogeshwar. He's a tinkerer, maker, a K-12 pedagogy program designer, and is working as the innovations and operations lead for the Atal Tinkering Labs program at the Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog. He has been a part of the AIM team for more than 3 years and has worked extensively in designing and implementing the Atal Tinkering Labs program. He has successfully designed and curated numerous events and contests for AIM and is currently working tirelessly towards making Zootopia 2021 a success. Mr. Ronak Jogeshwar, over to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gauri, for this lovely introduction, and glad to meet all of you today in this particular YouTube live. So yes, my name is Ronak Jogeshwar. I am a mechanical engineer by heart and also by education, and I have very diverse set of friends from design architecture backgrounds as well. So when this particular opportunity was coming in the Atal Innovation Mission team, where we had initial discussions on how to design a competition to this to make for the zoo interpretation centers across the country, it was definitely an obvious thought that we should add students from the architecture, the design background to participate in this particular initiative. Okay, and since then it has been a lovely ideation and definitely will be a lovely prototyping and taking it forward journey for all of us. Let me talk about Atal Innovation Mission in a quick fashion. For the sake of brevity, I'm just going to talk about some of the programs of the Atal Innovation Mission, and will also walk you through the AIM website as well. Atal Innovation Mission is a flagship initiative by the Niti Aayog, the National Institution of Transforming India, and is directly being overseen by the Prime Minister's office. We have two core functions: innovation promotion and entrepreneurship promotion. When we started our journey for these two core functions, we had two programs, and we still have those two programs in existence as well. First is obviously the Atal Tinkering Labs initiative, where we are looking at inculcating tinkering and innovation mindset within the younger students across the country. Okay, these students are from class 6 to class 12, and till date we have more than 7,000 adult tinkering labs which have been funded by the central government and have been established. Numerous activities have been happening for this initiative, starting from the ATL Marathon, which is a nationwide contest for the students coming across, which just concluded last month, and now we are at the evaluations phase. And then we have some of the interesting programs such as student innovator programs, student entrepreneurship program as well, in collaboration with the Atal incubation centers. That brings me to the next program, which is about entrepreneurship promotion, the Atal incubation centers. Just like a startup incubation center, what it is in essence, the Atal incubation centers are supporting top promising budding startup across the country, across the domains as well. We have a incubation center which is only for bioengineering. We have an incubation center which is only for biosciences. We have an incubation center which is only for molecular biology. We have an incubation center which is specifically for automobiles. We have an incubation center which is especially for dairy products as well. So the startups come in from these great institutions, which are institutions of repute, academic institutions, where the Atal incubation centers are set up, and the startups get a chance to leverage the knowledge, the know-how, and the mentorship of these centers. So the whole idea is all about creating a robust education, innovation, entrepreneurship ecosystem across the country. For that as well, we have a humongous pool of mentors of change for the programs who are professionals and who are volunteering their time out of their very busy schedule to support these students and startups. And we proudly call them the mentors of change. Apart from this, there are some more programs where the Atal Innovation Mission is working very closely to create a bridge between the innovators and entrepreneurship in tier 2, tier 3 areas. We have the Atal Community Innovation Centers program. These innovation centers are a mix of a tinkering lab, a makerspace, and an incubation center, are specifically targeted towards areas where a full-fledged incubation center is not yet in existence. Many of the more than 28 of these ACICs have been selected and evaluated and are in the process of being funded as well. Then we have some of the challenges that we talk about. Okay, Zootopia being one of them, but we have some interesting challenges in the past as well. We have the Unique Arise challenges where we collaborate with the ministries to understand and to involve with them and define some of the problem statements for the startup community across the country. And this is a great opportunity for the startups because they are actually solving a problem at a ministry level. And if the startups get selected, then they definitely have an opportunity to scale the innovation up and further. And then we have done some interesting hackathons as well. One of them was the Sun Sadhan hackathon, which was creation of toilets for Divyangjan or differently abled, and it was humongously supported by the Ministry of Water, Ministry of Jal Shakti, and it has been one of the greatest interesting programs which we were a part of, where we saw what kind of innovation and what kind of design thinking is required at ground level. Then we also are collaborating with international organizations, specifically with UNDP, one of the examples, which is a youth collab for quality startups and quality innovators to get to a global scale to showcase and to also present their innovations across the country. And now finally, we are here to Zootopia. Zootopia, the competition has been designed specifically for the design community to create an interpretation center, which is in the Mysore Zoo building, Mysore Zoo area. There's a building called the Interpretation Center, and we just thought that why not let the most imaginative, most creative people who are the architect students or the architect or the young architects or the students from the design community come in and actually solve some of the problems, like some of the problems and some of the interest and share some of the interesting ideas with all of us. And the best part about this specific competition is that the winner will see his, her, or their idea being coming to life, because we definitely plan and think to take this further to actually making the whole making the whole interpretation center as per the designs of the winning team or the winning individual. So that is what all this competition is all about. Atal Innovation Mission is all about, and we will be coming back to you with many of such of these interesting competitions, contests, experiences, and opportunities to share with all of us and with the rest of the world. So with that, I thank every one of you who has been joining the session, and over to you, Popuri ma'am.
Thank you very much for this quick introduction to the Atal Innovation Mission, Niti Aayog programs and functions. Surely this will be inspiring for the youth and startups. We have come to the end of our presentations. Thank you very much to all the speakers for the time that they have taken to make the presentations for the people listening in. I will now open the platform for questions. So, Dr. Ghosh, can I please ask you the first question?
Yes, please.
The question is, on the lines of Zootopia 2021, how can conservation, the importance of conservation in zoos, how can it influence the young? And then how do they actually contribute to conservation, and how do they actually contribute to the working in a zoo where conservation of animals takes predominant focus?
Right. Thank you, Dr. Gauri, for that. And I think all of us as speakers have given that input in terms of how things like Zootopia would support the youth of the country. I would perhaps again reiterate that this is a platform which I think is an opportunity, because especially when we are looking at a pandemic time, where maybe many of the students may not be able to do placements, physical placements for their job profile or as part of their experience. So to me, it's a golden opportunity. It's not just about winning a prize, but to understand and get deeper into a real world problem. So to me, it is this Zootopia gives that platform to the youngsters, to whatever theory, whatever conceptual frameworks that they have read about in their books, to actually apply and apply it at a nationwide platform, get it evaluated by eminent people who are stalwarts in this field, and then understand. So in the end, it is not just about further fine tuning and strengthening their own knowledge base, but if at all they feel for the animals, if at all they are conservation oriented, then this is the opportunity to contribute. Because all of us, whether we are a biologist or whether we are a forester or we are a scientist, all of us have a stake in conserving the animals. And this is where we are going out and reaching out to a stakeholder group and telling them that, hey, you have now the chance to contribute. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. Dr. Monga, the second question is for you.
Yes, please.
What innovative ideas can be implemented for a 21st century modern zoo design, considering that the fact that zoos are animal-centric institutions?
Thank you so much for this wonderful question. So I think we need to really keep a balance between the reality as well as the share. I'm not saying that we need to put tech related things, but we really need to really balance the exhibits, the visual exhibits, printable exhibits, and we can use really think of designing some ideas, incorporating augmented reality, not just screen, you can, um, there's a thing we call map participants to use that in their so projection map as just about planning incorporation of sound, as I mentioned before, that it's so you need really give maybe kind of a the way we enter into a forest, the forest is made with so much of care, the nature's care, So can we bring when we are designing interpretations our our zoo so that's some of the uh, incorporate.
Thank you very, very much. I have a follow-up question for you. With so much experience that you have worldwide, what are the latest digital technologies that are seen in some leading interpretation centers around the world? Could you hear me? I think she's not
Yes.
able to
So
hear us.
yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah.
Hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Can
yes.
you
yes.
hear me now? Yeah. Yeah. So yes, I
Yes.
can hear you. So
Dr. Monga, we lost you again.
yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this wonderful question, and I'm really happy that it's coming from the participants, and it's really exciting to hear such interesting questions. So, in most of the zoo interpretation centers, people are designers, really, architects who are working in a collaboration. They are with the centers. They are really coming up with the balance between the main display design as well as the tech together. So as I mentioned before also, like the something very going on very excitedly. The another one is augmented reality. Another aspect is, displaying a bigger screen where you can actually experience the micro interactions, or for example, if you want to see what is what goes inside a feather, or what goes inside, the tiger's mouth, or what is how does the skin of the tiger feels like. So those tangible kind of uh, tangibles people are also incorporating into the from the tech side, as well as the projection mapping is something very in which is there in different spaces. People have mimicked the sounds in hidden sounds speakers within the when actually they plan and design the whole interpretation spaces. So it's very interesting. If not just the sound, there has to be a support of greenery, there has to be a support of forest section, the forest area of leaves and tendrils and everything together, as well as the kind of a story in a cluster you want to tell. For example, if you're designing a small space, when you focus on that particular space, do you want your users to really sit there and wear a VR headset and really experience a bit of sound and music and how the particular animal looks like, tell a bit about story about that animal's life? So these are the small tech involvement which I have found in internationally in a lot of zoo interpretation centers. Yes.
Thank
Hope
you very
my
much.
most welcome, most welcome. Yeah.
Thank you. For one very last quick question for Mr. Jogeshwar. What innovative ideas do you think young minds can keep, in the forefront when they're looking at designing a zoo interpretation center? Is there some examples that you can give for people listening?
Okay, so it's a really broad question, to be honest.
Yes.
I am not an expert in designing zoos, but in based on what my experiences with some of my friends from the architecture the background is that they definitely use this software design work, isometric views, top views, bot views, and so on. Okay, isometric views is something that is used very humongously because of the fact that it really gives you the sense of space and how the space will look and all of that. Also, there are some 3D generated designs. Since we have in the competitions, we have also shared all the DXF the DWG files which you might require to design your interpretation center, and we will encourage you to use those. We are openly sharing those resources with you for this competition. You would be in a position to create a 3D environment of your entry as well. So I think definitely you should leverage that. The resources have been given to you in the competition just for that purpose, so that you can be as imaginative as you can be. Also, be prudent of the fact that what technology do you really want to use? Do you want to use virtual reality? Do you want to use some animation? Do you want to use maybe some illusions in the interpretation center as such? Two of the examples which are not related to zoos as per se, but related to spatial designs in my experience are the Kala Ghoda festival, which happens in Mumbai every year. Okay, lovely installations every year. It's just amazing to see that. I hail from Mumbai, so I think it's something that which I do every year. And secondly, the Thanmil and the Start area, ST plus ART area in the Lodi Art District. I think there was an intervention by the French embassy and the Start programs, and then there we have some installations and some interesting designs as well. So if you haven't seen them yet, I'm not asking you to visit those, since we are in a pandemic situation, and definitely we would like ourselves to be safe. But obviously you can virtually visit them through the various internet research that you can do. And I have limited knowledge about zoo design, so I would definitely be dependent on the wonderful presentation that Dr. Monga has shared with us as well. So that's what my thoughts are. And yes, all the best. And do use your resources that are available on the AIM website to ensure that you put your best foot forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Kala Ghoda for all Mumbaikars is very close to our heart anyway. So thank you for reminding us about that. I think we've come to an end. We have no more questions on this platform. So we will officially end our session for the talks. Mr. Jogeshwar, can I please request if you could, if you could steer a walkthrough of the competition website and the application link very quickly, and then we can officially end this session. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So I'm going, for the sake of all the participants, I'm going to speak in both Hindi and English languages. Uh, to participate in the Zootopia competition, you just have to simply visit the Atal Innovation Mission website. Zootopia competition में आपको participate करने के लिए simply आपको AIM की website पे जाना है. aim.gov.in is the link. वहां पे आपको एक banner दिखेगा Zootopia 2021. You will see a banner called Zootopia 2021. Just simply click on it. When you click on it, you will be redirected to the web page zootopia.php. Here you have all the information that you will require for this particular competition. We have mentioned the criteria, we have mentioned the requirements, and we have also given you the relevant files that you require for this competition. जब आप Zootopia के वेब पेज पे जाओगे, आपको सभी इंफॉर्मेशन, इंपॉर्टेंट इंफॉर्मेशन यहाँ पे मिल जाएगी. आपको अपनी टीम साइज के बारे में पता चल जाएगा, आपको क्राइटेरिया के बारे में पता चल जाएगा, आपको आप सबमिट क्या करना है वो भी पता चल जाएगा, और आपके लिए सभी फाइल्स जो रिसोर्सेज हैं जो आपको जरूरत पड़ सकती है वो यहाँ पे अवेलेबल है. If you want to just access the whole guidelines, which is the first document that we recommend you to refer to, you can just click here on guidelines. अगर आप सबसे पहले गाइडलाइंस जो है उस डॉक्यूमेंट को रेफर कीजिए. गाइडलाइंस यहाँ पे अवेलेबल है, यहाँ पे क्लिक करेंगे तो वो गाइडलाइंस डाउनलोड हो जाएंगी. आई एम जस्ट क्लिकिंग ऑन द गाइडलाइंस एंड हियर दे आर. सेकेंडली, जो भी आपको कंपटीशन की फाइल्स का रिक्वायरमेंट है, DWG, DXF, PDF फाइल्स जो भी आपको रिक्वायरमेंट है इंटरप्रिटेशन सेंटर के डिजाइन की, वो यहाँ पे अवेलेबल है कंपटीशन फाइल्स. Whatever files you require for your entry, the DWF files, the design files, or the PDF files are available within the competitions files link. When you click here, you will download a zip file. जब आप यहाँ पे क्लिक करेंगे एक zip file डाउनलोड होगी और आप उस zip file में सभी resources available है. Finally, when you have read the guidelines and when you have, after reading the guidelines and after referring to the competition files, you must have created your entry. Then you can apply now. इन दोनों गाइडलाइंस और कंपटीशन फाइल्स को लेवरेज करने का जो आपका फाइनल डिजाइन होगा उसके लिए आप अप्लाई नाउ पे क्लिक कर सकते हैं. When you click on apply now, you will be redirected to the application portal. यहाँ पे सिंपली when you जब आप अप्लाई नाउ पे क्लिक करेंगे तब आप कंपटीशन के वेबसाइट पे चले जाएंगे. यहाँ पे आपको अपना ईमेल और पासवर्ड और कैप्चा कोड इफ डालना है और आप अपनी एंट्री को कंप्लीट कर सकते हैं. First time users, please register. Okay, once you register, you can log in. So when you log in, you will have all the relevant information about your team, your college, your entry, and the files that you need to upload. And you can submit your entry. Please note that the last date for the application is the 14th of May. Okay. So please do submit your entries before that date, and we will recommend you to submit it at least 2 to 3 days prior to avoid any last minute hassles as such. प्लीज नोट कीजिए कंपटीशन की डेडलाइन ये है और हम आपको ये रिकमेंड करेंगे कि डेडलाइन के 2 या 3 दिन पहले एटलीस्ट आप अपनी एंट्रीज को डाल दीजिए क्योंकि लास्ट मोमेंट में कोई हैसल आपके साथ होना नहीं चाहिए. In any case whatsoever, you can always reach out to us at aim.challenges.com for any queries whatsoever. So if you want to email us with any doubts, the email is here, aim.challenges@gov.in. अगर आपके पास कोई queries है तो आप हमें यहाँ पे email कर सकते हैं aim.challenges@gov.in. We will try to resolve your queries as soon as possible. Thank you so much, and over to you.
Thank you. I think we've come to the end of the session, so I will thank everyone for taking the time and joining us today for the sessions. We have several expert talks lined up, and we hope you can join us for the next session, which is on the 1st of May at 6 p.m. Thank you all very much and have a very good evening.
Thank you so much for arranging this such a wonderful session.